To make my landscape collage, I'm going to have a foreground, middle ground, and background. And you'll remember that our background takes up about 1/3 of the paper, our middle ground takes up about 1/3 of the paper, and the foreground takes up about 1/3 of the paper. I'm going to label mine so that you can see, but you don't have to label yours. Mine is going to be in the middle of the day. So I'm going to put a nice happy sun in my background. We start from the back and we work forward because we want things in the back to be overlapped by things in the front. So we want the things in the front to be on top of the things that are behind them. So for example, if I'm gluing this down as my middle ground and this down as my foreground, if I glued my foreground down first and then tried to glue my background or my middle ground on top of it, I wouldn't be able to. So we always work from the back to the front when we're doing a collage. I actually did this demo once already and the sound wasn't on, so some of my pieces of paper I had to rip up. So some of them are a little beaten up. So I have a middle ground and a foreground, and the assignment has us make at least one object that repeats and goes from the back, or goes in the front, it's bigger, and in the background, it's smaller. You can see where I had to rip up my pieces already. I actually went ahead and did many different objects. So I also have a tree, and a tree that's smaller. I have a bigger person and a smaller person. Smaller person. And I made a silly kitty and a smaller kitty for the background. Okay, I'm going to do some gluing now. Now that I have everything kind of arranged and I know where I want it to be, I'm going to start gluing from the back forward. So I'm going to first glue down my happy sun in the background. That's all I'm going to put in my background for now, at least. Then the next thing I'm going to glue, am I going to glue the foreground or the middle ground first? Right, the middle ground, because it is behind the foreground. And just like always, a little glue goes a long way. I'm not scribbling with my glue stick, I'm just kind of putting enough glue that it will stay down. And I'm going to try and line it up with the corners, but it doesn't have to be perfect because our foreground is going to go on top of it later. All right, now I'm going to glue my foreground down, or if I want to really show a sense of space, I could glue my house, my smaller house, behind this hill, and it would really look like it's going back in space, even more than if it's back here. So I think I might do that, which means that I'm going to want to glue down my house first, because otherwise I'm going to have to glue it on top. So I'm going to hold this down while I take away my other pieces, and I'll know that I want to glue it about right here. If I want to, I can actually put a mark on my paper so that I know where to line it up. Again, you can see I had to rip it up, so that's another reason not to use too much glue in case you want to move it. So I'm going to line it up along the edge right there. And then when I put my foreground on top, it looks like it's over the hill behind. All right, if I have my small person over here maybe, and my small tree, I might even put my small tree behind my small person, and then my tiny kitty, maybe it's on top of the house because that's funny. All right, I'm going to glue the rest of these middle ground pieces down and come back. So now I've glued my middle ground on, and I'm going to glue my foreground on top of that. And then I'll glue my other house that's bigger, and my other tree, my other person, and my other cat. All right, I'm going to do some gluing and come back. And here's my finished collage. I decided actually when I started gluing things down that it would look even more like a sense of space, and this would look even more like it was in the foreground if this tree overlapped this back tree. So I overlapped them there. Same thing with the cat's tail. If they overlapped, it looked even more like this was in front of this. All right, I'm excited to see your landscape collage. Remember to work from the back to the middle to the foreground so that you can get some overlapping. And you have at least one object that is bigger in the foreground and the same object, but it's smaller in the middle ground.